It happens to almost everyone, where people will eat something that they didn't intend to eat, or eat more than they intended to, or in a way that they didn't intend to. And then they feel bad. They feel bad about themselves. They feel bad, maybe physically, whatever it is. It is something that happens to almost everyone today, in our day, in our modern times, because we are biologically wired to want and desire foods that are rich and that are sweet. This is an evolutionary and a survival mechanism because food was always scarce, right? So if a rich and high caloric meal came up, you better eat it because who knows when the next meal like this is going to come around. Today, though, with the nutritional environment that we have and all these hedonic foods, and that these rich, sweet, starchy, hyper processed, hyper delicious, hyper addictive foods are basically the foods that are most available, are most eaten, and are most socially acceptable, then most people there will come a time where they will eat in a way that they didn't intend to, and they feel bad about it. But here's the thing. I'm gonna tell you that, that little voice in your head that says, one isn't gonna kill you. Well, actually, in theory, that voice is right. If you have just one, a small one, rarely, or really just like once in a while, with big breaks in between that one little one, it isn't going to kill you. Nothing's going to happen to you. I mean, maybe it's not promoting health, but it won't harm your health if you have just one once in a while. So when do these foods start to potentially, yes, kill you, is when that just one little one strings up with another little one and another just one and another just one and another just one. Or when that just one turns into 20 or more, right? And some uncontrolled eating. People like me, for example, who are addicted to sugar, there is no such thing as just one. It's all or nothing deal. It's like if I go completely out of control. I can't have just one. Then that can already start killing people. Or, right, if it happens that it becomes so obsessive about what I'm eating and when I'm eating and how, and did I have more than I intended or not? Did I break my diet? Did I not break my diet? What am I eating? When it becomes so obsessive that it takes over your life, well, that really can negatively affect people's quality of life. Now, when just one little one and just one little one gets strung along, that becomes a lot of one little ones, or these one little ones are never really one little one. They're all huge, many, many huge ones. They can kill. And here's the biggest problem. They kill very silently and over time. It's not like, like if you have, God forbid, if somebody starts using crack cocaine, they get addicted very, very quickly. And the harm is very, very prevalent and very quickly. And it's a very acute, many times, it's a very acute situation. Whereas when it comes to food, what happens is people who overconsume these foods over a long term, by the time somebody gets diagnosed with diabetes, they don't really feel anything. It's just that they see their blood tests are bad, and then the doctor says to them, take a medication. Like by the time anybody starts feeling anything from diabetes or high blood pressure, the only one that really comes to that affects quite quickly is obesity. If somebody becomes overly obese, or has a lot of fat, has a very big body, it causes a lot of problems and a lot of complications and a lot of discomfort. So what happens is that people eat too much and they know it's bad for them. And maybe it also causes them physical discomfort. And we eat too much because when we are cued, right? When we see these delicious and rich foods, when we smell them, when we see other people eating them, when we see them advertised in signs and on television and at the cash at the shoe store, there's chocolate bars there, on the counter. So we're constantly being reminded of that very pleasurable experience, really a primary memory that doesn't happen in the places of the brain where it's about willpower and logic, right? So we're reminded of that wonderful experience that we had, when we eat it, and then we want to. And then, even though, maybe logically we know the desire sometimes is so great that it's very, very hard all the time, 24/7, to really push back at those cues, especially people who are more sensitive to the cues or to the pleasure experienced with food. And I'm not just talking about people who are actually like really, really addicted. The fact of the matter is that more than half of the adult population is either sick or overweight or both from how they're eating. So this is becoming a real problem. But now what happens is that with the diet mentality, another problem comes together with that problem that compounds it even more. And that is this like regret and negative self-talk and shame and self-hate that comes when people mess up with their food. And these negative, well, first of all, these reactions are normal. Let's face it. It bums me out if I committed to doing something or meant to do something or obligated myself to doing something and I didn't do it. It bums me out. I'm upset with myself. But when being upset with myself or being bummed out because, I messed up, and what can you do? People mess up, if it's with food or with other things. When I first got off sugar and my addictive eating, when I started abstaining from sugar, I did it through a 12-step program. And in 12-step spirituality, somebody came to me and said, Zippi, there is a God and it's not you, right? We're human. We mess up. And when we mess up, we get bummed out with ourselves. That's normal. But when getting bummed out with yourself becomes this litany of negative self-talk, of name calling, like somebody close to me in my family used to call herself a stupid cow. Calling yourself a stupid cow is not okay. That's not that doesn't bring to a natural healing or correcting of the situation. I have yet to meet the person who really sustained long-term healthy eating habits or weight loss or both from coming down on themselves just harder and harder and harder every single time. So what happens is that, excuse me, because I see my microphone wasn't in, so maybe you hear me better now. What happens is that this like cursing yourself out or being so ashamed and this negative self-talk of like I screwed up. I'm so weak-willed. Why can't I do this? And all this really like shaming yourself and cursing yourself and calling yourself names is just adding another problem to the problem that we all have about being around these intensely stimulating and tempting foods, which is very, very hard to eat them in moderation. And even people who don't like, let's say, binge out on them all the time, just a little more than very little can really cause harm. So here's the thing though. How do you balance out that, that balancing act between, on the one hand, facing the truth and being honest with yourself, right? Because if we say, oh, it doesn't matter, oh, it doesn't matter, oh, it doesn't matter, we can, oh, it doesn't matter ourselves straight into diabetes or high blood pressure or, God forbid, stroke or complications, like kidney failure or whatever it is. So saying, oh, it doesn't matter is just another form of denial, right? And like pretending it didn't happen. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about more is about being soft on ourselves, about forgiving myself if I messed up, That doesn't mean being dishonest with myself. To forgive myself and to be gentle with myself does not mean I am being dishonest. It doesn't mean I'm not striving for better. We can't strive for better if somebody's constantly banging on our head and with a hammer, and it's us, especially, okay? Because then it never leaves. So what I say is it's no small feat. This is something that I work on with my clients a lot, about finding this balance between, on the one hand, self-forgiveness and self-acceptance, that sometimes I mess up. And if I messed up with the food, well, it happened. I can't change it. And then that other, but have recommitting and, being more determined than ever, not to eat in a healthy way, not, or, being determined or wanting to do something or being motivated. That's a very important step. That's the first step, but it's not enough. You can't want yourself into health. You can't want yourself into a right-sized body. You can't motivate yourself to, not to withstanding temptation. The way to do it after you've decided you want it, you've decided you're willing to commit to it, you are motivated to do it, is to take action. Without taking actions, I always tell people, if you want a different result, you've got to do something differently. So just wanting to do things differently is not enough. Wanting to be motivated or being motivated is not enough. Saying, I'm going to do this is great, but it's not enough. It needs to be followed by action. Tony Robbins calls it massive action. When he talks about massive action, he's not talking about somebody necessarily closing themselves in a closed institution for 4 months to lose weight, or I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, that's not massive action. When he talks about massive action, I can tell you that my definition of massive action is doing many, many little actions over the course of the day that keep me on the path, Here, I'm going to give an example. We just finished the Passover holiday. There is also a tradition in Sephardic communities, and here in Israel, it's basically everybody does it, which is at the end of Passover to have this thing called mimuna. And at the mimuna, there are these very special sweet with honey pancakes and stuff like that, and all these pastries and really very enticing things. There's no vegetables at a mimuna, right? So many people go to a mimuna, and maybe we're just going for the social event and end up, having something. And maybe they end up having more than they meant to. Then coming home and just coming down on yourself and saying, oh, I'm such a failure, is not going to help. Being determined, let's say, okay, I messed up. I ate in a way that isn't really good for me. Tomorrow's a new day. I'm done. Tomorrow's a new day, and let's do this. That's great. But now you got to do it. Now you got to take action. You start doing the things that will help you and facilitate this change that you would like to do. Pushing it off to tomorrow or the next day, or when things are calmer at work, or when the kids, aren't so sick, or I don't know, when they're financially, I can afford to go into some kind of a program, that is never going to happen. It's never going to be the right time. What I tell my clients is the first day of the rest of your life is today, is now, right this moment. This is the moment when you can start taking action. For example, if you are Jewish and you are celebrating Passover, or maybe you're watching this after your Easter holiday, maybe, you are after a Ramadan feast where there were a lot of sweet things around and there's a lot of leftovers left in your house now hanging around. Maybe it's time to get rid of them so that they won't tempt you, especially those foods that are most tempting. And then people say, yeah, but what about my kids? And what about my wife? And what about my husband? Well, many, many times when I challenge my clients to ask their family if they want these things around, they say, no, please, we prefer you get them out of the house too. Everybody wants to eat healthy at the end of the day, or most people anyway. And if I tell my clients, maybe come to them and say, look, I need your help people. There's these foods hanging around the house and I'm really, really tempted to eat them. And I know that when I eat them, I don't feel well. Or I'm really trying to limit my sugar intake, or I'm trying to not eat these foods. Would it be okay if we get rid of them? Like, of course, like almost every single time, the family will say, of course, we should get rid of them if you can't, if you don't want to eat them. And yet, when they're hanging around, you eat them anyway. Of course, we want to help you be healthy. Of course, people prefer their loved families being happy and healthy over a cookie or a mufleta, which is like the food of the mimuna, right? So these are the type of small actions, right? Or if you do have stuff around, put it away. If if you are going on a certain route to work every day and there's that bakery there that every single time calls out your name, maybe take a different route. Maybe drive your car in another way. It might take you 5 more minutes. But actually, if you stopped at that bakery, it takes you much less. So it's to find these actions, these real actions, these concrete actions, preparing healthy food in advance, right? Or taking food to work, maybe, so that you don't eat those cookies that are in the coffee corner. There are many, many actions that people can take. And here I also want to send a special message for people who want to take action and are just finding it very difficult to do that. Then ask for help. This is the time. This is the time to join a program, to get in touch with a professional, to join a support group. It doesn't matter. It really is something that for many people is hard to do alone without support, especially people who feel like these foods are addictive to them, that they are uncontrollably drawn to these foods, even when they know that it's really dangerous for them to eat it. I've had diabetics who have come to me, who knew nutrition backwards and forwards, and their sugar was through the roof, because it's not about logic. It's not about, and many, many times, if you want to know the truth, it's not about self-hate. It's about the way our brain is wired and about being triggered constantly to this hedonic or addictive eating. And sometimes it's really, really hard to break that cycle of eating and then wanting and then eating and then wanting and eating and wanting. And it's very hard to break that cycle alone. So this is my mission, to help people break that cycle. But there are many, I am so happy to say that there are many, many services out there today to help people have also healthier eating habits, but also a healthier relationship with food. It has to come together. It really, really does. So here's what I say. If you've messed up with your food over the holiday, or I don't know, for whatever reason it is, maybe there is no reason. I like to talk about 4 stages that are helpful. The first is really self-love and acceptance. To look at it in the face, be honest with yourself about what happened. Don't say it doesn't matter. It matters. Be honest with yourself, but also forgive yourself and love yourself. I always say, let's say you're driving. You crossed the white line, right? You crossed it and went into the opposing lane. You almost had an accident or whatever happened. You scared the other driver coming in the other direction. What do you do then? And you go back. Right? What do you do then? You hold the steering wheel a little harder, concentrate much better on the road, and you keep driving. You don't press on the gas and go headlong into a tree because you crossed over a white line. So it's the same thing with food. If we've messed up, okay, now it's time to first accept and forgive myself, and then take a good, honest look at what happened. And that's the honesty part of it, right? And then think about what I can learn from this. What do I need to do differently next time so that won't happen? Maybe I shouldn't be keeping my, what I call kryptonites in the house, right? Things that it's very, very hard for me not to eat them if they're around me. Maybe I need to do things a little differently. Maybe I need to invest a half an hour every day in prepping my food or cooking my own food rather than going and buying ready-made food, and cooking it in bulk. Maybe I need to buy more frozen vegetables so that it's easier for me to just stick some frozen vegetables in the oven. Maybe I need to go and get help building a healthier relationship with my food and at the same time improving my eating habits. So that is my message to you today. Be soft on yourself, but soft as steel. This is what I learned in a spiritual program called Yamima. Be soft as steel. Be honest, but also it is a matter not just of what I want and what my goals are, but what are you willing to do today, the first day of the rest of your life, to be the change. Have a wonderful evening, rest of the week. If you like this video, if you like the message in this video, please like and share. And you can subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're watching it, like my Facebook page if you're watching it on my Facebook. And don't forget to sign up for the free Real Food shopping list, which the link is on YouTube. It's in the description. In Facebook, it's in the first comment of this video. And I will see you all next week. Zippi Livne, nurse and certified food addiction counselor. I will see you all next week, Sunday, 8 p.m. Israel time, 1 p.m. EST at Zippi Live. Bye-bye.